What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunched Boxing News, and I have some more news, some new news concerning Daniel Triple D Dubois. Jarrell, Big Baby Miller, get this. Punishment time was in session. Danny Dubois came out throwing everything in the kitchen sink, sticking to his game plan, landing jabs, right hands, right uppercuts, left hooks to the body, right hooks to the body, left uppercuts to the body, right uppercuts to the body, jabs to the face, behind the head, to the ball sack, everything, and the kitchen sink. Okay, he hit Jarrell with everything that he possibly could, and Jarrell kept coming forward. That lasted for 2 or 3 rounds until Jarrell was able to catch up with him, using his own jab as well as a straight, sneaky right hand, because when Dubois decided to circle out, he never moved his head, so he would get caught right in the kisser by these shots. The only problem was, past round 6, Jarrell Miller discarded with the jab and that little tricky right hand and just started trying to load up on shots, which they became far few in between. But Daniel Dubois was, of course, in way better shape and was in condition to keep doing what he was doing. And you can tell that he was hurting Jarrell Miller with shots that he was landing flush. Hell, it got to the point where he couldn't miss Jarrell Miller with that head like a 5-10-pound ham. He couldn't miss that 10-pound ham. He sure couldn't. Okay, so what ended up happening? Jarrell Miller started, clowning. He was talking. He landed couple good shots. Danny Dubois took him like a G, but kept coming and kept to the game plan. Him and Don Charles, shout out to him, constructed of beating Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller did have a beard, but he had those big titties. I didn't like those big titties. I didn't like that 333 pounds, because what we known in the heavyweight division, if you have too much weight, your weight or muscle will betray you sooner or later. In Jarrell Miller's case, it was later, simply because Jarrell Miller ran out of gas. You can tell he was just in there and he was taking shots, and he was known to be a volume puncher, and we didn't see that with the fat-tittied Jarrell Miller. We seen a guy that was throwing certain shots. He discarded from the things that actually was working for him, the jab and the straight right hand when Danny Dubois went back. And it was a good fight for a while. Until maybe around 7 or 8. 7 or 8, 9, and then 10, Dubois was catching him with pretty much everything. Even if after they told Jarrell Miller, like, look, you're going to have to let your hands go. He couldn't, because he was too slow. He was off. He was fat. He was slow. He didn't know where to go. Bars. I think Jarrell Miller was a guy that, people are going to criticize him now. Without the juice, without the extra, help, or in the ass back of your back door of your butt cheeks, people are going to question, can Jarrell Miller perform the same way without the juice? And it looks bad on him. For one, for all the shit he talked. For two, he used to be a drug cheat, and he had to perform and show everybody that he could still fight without the drugs. Okay? He was a hell of a lot smaller without the drugs, but he punched a hell of a lot more. Okay? But in the 10th round, Danny Dubois convinced the referee by landing so many shots, and he was hurting Miller at that point. He was rocking Miller, throwing Miller into the ropes. He punished Jarrell Miller. That's what it sounded like to me. He punished Jarrell Miller for the shit he talked. He punished him for everything he said. He punished him for some stuff that he said. Everything. He punished him. He punished him for the right to prove that he ain't a sucker or a quitter or a bitch or a pussy or anything else like that. Danny Dubois showed, hey, I can take a licking and keep on ticking, because he knows he knew what was at stake. And Jarrell Miller was coming, and they stopped the fight in the 10th round again. And I have to say this. Jarrell Miller at least showed good sportsmanship. As much as a bad guy that he portrays to be, he showed nothing but 100% love to Danny Dubois. Well, let me say 90%, because he did say, hey, I was inactive, which he was. But he did promote the sport and promoted the card, nonetheless, him losing. So he wasn't a spoil sport, which was cool. And he said, we're brothers for life. That's what Daniel Dubois said. He's like, man, you did it. You showed me what was up, and I like that. And you got to respect Jarrell Miller for that because he has nothing else left besides his character. He just joined the faith of Islam. Let's see if he, strives in that. I can clearly see as clear as day that Jarrell Miller needs to hang out with Andy Ruiz. He needs to lose that weight. He needs to get strengthened. He needs to work more on that because the punching output that he gave, wasn't anything like he was before they popped him dirty. Okay? So I'm not saying each and every time he was on drugs. I'm saying he's not fighting the same versus how he used to be. And that could be always linked to the fact that, hey, maybe you can't take the drugs no more because they tested you 5 times in the last 7 days. You couldn't put any of that extra ump in your system to give you that ump or that extra that you beat other fighters with and that so forth, whatever. So Daniel Dubois did surprise me a lot. Shout out to Daniel Dubois. He showed he's no bitch. He showed that he can, take on some of these guys. But, you got to ask yourself, how good is Daniel Dubois versus how bad Jarrell Miller looked? Off the juice or inactivity or all the above? But I'll say you this with critiquing of Daniel Dubois, he still hasn't learned how to move his head. That's why Jarrell Miller, being the slower fighter, was still able to jab and that flicking right hand that he flicked out as a jab to catch Daniel Dubois with. So keep that in mind. So if he does get a rematch with Joe Joyce and Joe Joyce comes out with that jab, he's going to have to be able to defend from that jab or that eye's going to give again. That's a familiar strength, especially someone keeps peppering your ass with it, like I know Joe Joyce would do. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Daniel Dubois punishing Jarrell Miller for 10 rounds and then it was stopped. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunched. Peace!